and to be living your life, embodying your soul's purpose.
That's it right there. All three of those, embodying your soul's purpose, being in service, contributing with all your gifts, all your talents, co-creating with God, beauty and love and joy and success on this planet. Truly, the whole idea of miracle makers stems from this fact that human beings are miracles. It's like what science now says that it's like 400 trillion to 1 are the odds of you being born. To me, that is a miracle. And human beings can do the miraculous. They can receive the miraculous. They can step into the miraculous. And yet, how many of us are really experiencing that on a day-to-day basis, experiencing the miraculous, when that is our potential? And so that's what this show is about today, is a discussion around and sharing around what is it to be a miracle maker? How do you need to embody, all the teachings, all of the the modeling that's been happening throughout time of different human beings coming along and saying, this is what you can do to be a miracle maker, and to invite the grace of God into your life, to invite serendipity and synchronicity, all of those things that are so exciting in life and actually, lead to just greater fulfillment, contentment, joy, a greater satisfaction in life.
There really is so much science around we are mysterious beings. 1 in 400 trillion of you being born. And if that isn't a miracle, then the fact that there's probably been 100 billion people that have been born and no one like you ever existed, and no one like you ever will exist again. And if that doesn't inspire you to really step into being who you are without second guessing what it is that keeps coming through your inner knowing, your inner voice. And each of us has an idea, a belief system of where we came from. Whether your belief system is scientifically based, or based by something written in a book, or based on what's been passed down generation to generation within your family, or something you just came up with. What's absolutely true is it's a mystery. We cannot know for absolute certainty what it is. And when you have profound experiences that cannot be explained, you're like, oh my God, that's a miracle. When you know that over and over again, like me, you become passionate about others stepping into that knowing and being able to trust moment to moment what's being brought to you every day in your life.
Truly, as you're sharing now, it's just like, wow, there's so many examples of this phenomenon. And what comes to mind for me is the phenomenon of a seed.
Yes.
If a seed, an acorn is planted, or if, a mustard seed is planted, if you ask that mustard seed, you can be this tall and do these amazing things, the mustard seed would think, I can't do that. I'm just a little mustard seed, or I'm a little acorn. How could I be 50 feet tall and have a huge spread of branches and leaves and be abundant and have leaves come back and over again, create all this miraculous stuff? If you ask the acorn that, they probably wouldn't believe that. But within that seed is the miraculous. And human beings, they're not just, a seed of an acorn or of a oak tree. Human beings, the potential within every human being is phenomenal, amazing. Astronauts, athletes, entertainers, scientists, it just boggles the mind, everything that a human being can be and how far they can stretch and reach and grow. And yet, if you think you're just this little acorn or this little mustard seed, never realizing your potential, you're missing out on there's just the fullness and the richness of a human experience.
And it's so fabulous because each of those seeds, when planted and nourished, the seed itself has to nourish itself. It itself has to reach out and receive the soil, the nutrients, the water, the sunshine. All of that is within you. Once that seed is nourished and turned into the plant that is meant to be, it drops a lot of seeds. I think
Yeah.
of the apple tree. One apple tree planted drops year after year, great seeds that can be carried. And an apple seed doesn't struggle to be an orange.
That's right. Oh my gosh. I just want to be an orange. You're an apple. No.
And the apple tree that dropped the apple that became a seed in itself, the apple tree doesn't say, "You owe me, dear apple. You are my fruit, my child. You must give to me and serve me in some manner." The apple tree is just great, reaching deeper and deeper, wanting more seeds of its own nature to come through, reaching and turning its leaves to the sunshine, to the light. And with this metaphor, we really want you to get what is within you, the seed that's within you that came through, that only you can bring through. It's so important. That seed, whatever lights you up, whatever makes you stretch, whatever nourishes you around you, reach for that. And from that knowing of, wow, I have something so unique within me, I'm going to keep discovering it. I'll keep discovering the mystery of it. I'll keep stretching myself. I'll keep turning myself to what lights me up. That is how you walk through and create blessed fruit that goes out from every one of your branches.
What comes to mind as you're talking is the quote from Joseph Campbell, which is to follow your bliss. A seed follows its bliss.
Yes.
A tree follows its bliss. You know, all organisms, in a sense, follow their own bliss. And it's, I don't know, maybe there's other creatures in the universe that are like human beings and trip themselves up, get in their own ways, you know, get lost in old perceptions or paradigms that no longer serve them, that don't allow them to follow their bliss. But truly, the universe is designed, and everything follows that law of follow your bliss, follow the flow, follow God's grace. You know, there's signs, there's signals, there's so much, you know, leading us in that direction. And yet through our own conditioning, you know, societal conditioning, family conditioning, what we learn as we're growing up from our teachers and our peers, all of that squashes us or contracts us and keeps us from living that experience of being in the bliss, being in the flow, expressing ourselves, giving ourselves.
Yes, and it's so important to recognize in our culture, and most cultures, we have translated the past equals the future. And that's a falsehood that we have believed over time. Your past does not equal your future. Your present moment is filled with this capacity to be a present, a mystery, a source of possibilities that are endless. And yet, much of what we learned is who you were in the past, or how things were in the past is how they will always be. And if you step into a mysterious conversation with yourself, which is, wow, where do I want to grow? What brings me light? What just gets me going, filled with joy and bliss? And you keep your attention focused on that. It's amazing what can be generated through your life, through the path, which brings me to that wonderful quote, which is, there were two paths, and one was laid out and one was not. And I followed the one that was not. You follow a path of bliss that you know works for you until you get to parting. And you stretch yourself, and you know this path hasn't been created by another. We are creators, creative beings. And if you continue to follow someone else's path, you will not necessarily find your own bliss.
Wow, I wish I could just, yeah. It's because this is like, we're talking about it and this all makes sense. And it's just like, it's lighting me up. I'm getting tingles all over. And yet, there's so many people who don't experience that. And so, we were talking about, the kind of what we want to talk about today is how to be a miracle maker, which leads
Yes.
me kind of to what I would say is a starting point is no matter what happened to you in the past, no matter, how you were hurt, how you hurt others, no matter what went down in the past, we have to embrace forgiveness and
Yes.
forgive others, forgive ourselves, and clear all of that which no longer serves you. Let it go, whatever that is. And there's so much out there today, and whether it's healing or whether it's tools for forgiveness, but clearing yourself of the old, of the past baggage, however you want to call that, and allowing yourself to be a receiver of grace and new ideas and those intuitive nudges that says, move in this direction, follow your bliss. It's hard to do that until we come to this place of forgiveness.
And I'd love to share some of my stories around being very, very broken at one point in life. And I was born in a third world country. I immigrated to the U.S. Even though coming from a great family and coming from a great origin and belief systems, much of it limited what girls could be, what women could actually do, and how to see yourself was quite fogged up and created long before I had words that could speak what was happening. If I would not fully claim my power as a woman, my power as a person, part of that claiming of who I am involved taking responsibility for what happened to me in my life. I was amazingly put in awkward situations at a young age, married at 14 to a 28-year-old doctor who truly expected a proper wife. He did all the things that a wonderful man of that community would do. And it's part of the culture there. By the time I'm 19, I'm left for dead, and I have all of these profound connections and these near-death experiences. And I have this great knowing of oneness, this understanding of the great mystery that I could understand at age 19. And at the same time, I live in a reality that sees me and I see myself as really bad, really in pain, really not capable of even the smallest things. And slowly but surely, without even knowing what to do, I began a path of service. And even though I didn't understand why I was serving at the time, I didn't understand that I was really trying to create feeling good inside myself or feeling worthy inside myself. I found, oh, I like medicine. I'm going to serve here. Oh, I like this. I became a doctor. Oh, I really want to help. And especially people like me have signed up for charity work. And even in that, I'd never really forgiven myself. And I'd never fully claimed how I created all of that. Part of it is understanding whatever we're given in life, choose it. I couldn't choose my race. I couldn't choose my color. I couldn't choose where I was born. I couldn't choose anything except for how I respond. And so one of the things that I quite often say is the floor is the floor, the wall is the wall, the ceiling is the ceiling. My past is my past. My color is my color. My lot or the burden that I am to carry is the burden I am to carry. And I imagine everyone else in the world carrying the same load, a different burden, but the same load. And with that, I create within myself forgiveness of the culture, whichever culture it is in the moment. And I remember whenever I'm lost, I remember the great mystery that I met in my near-death experiences. And whenever there's a shadow of a doubt of anything, signs show up. And one of those signs is, for me, how I met my husband, which I love this story. I had dedicated my life. I was never going to get married. I was going to be the Mother Teresa of medicine. We laugh at this. We laugh at this. Every time I went to go take this one particular licensing exam, I got violently ill. And back in those days, you had to schedule. There were only twice a year you could take this test. So twice I got violently ill. All of my friends, everyone that I studied with, took the exam, passed it. They all did beautifully. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to still pass this exam. I want to make study partners. It's U.S. licensing exams for doctors. And there was only one course in Nashville being offered. And so I sign up. I take this course. And again, I'm the Mother Teresa of medicine in my mind. I'm never going to get married because I've dedicated my life to service. And I am in Nashville, and my sister and dad are coming to town the first weekend that I'm there to visit me and check out the location and make sure everything's fine. So I look up what's happening in town to entertain my dad and my sister, things that they would love to do in Nashville. And my favorite band of all time is playing, this band called Cowboy Mouth. They're just a brilliant band. The drummer sits on stage and he does affirmations and just calls out to the audience and creates this oneness experience. And so they were playing. I literally grabbed my roommate. We drove to the concert and we're running so that we don't miss the beginning, or at least I am. I'm like dragging my roommate along. And my roommate had played with the next band, Better Than Ezra, and says, hey, do you want to come backstage, meet Better Than Ezra? And I'm like, no, thank you. I'm just going to be up here. I love the experience from the audience. Most of my life had the backstage experience, just growing up in Louisiana and New Orleans in the French Quarter. So I really just love being out in the crowd and experiencing Cowboy Mouth that way. In this grand stadium, and I look over and I see this handsome, not my type, man with that looks just like a friend of mine that I went to school with. And so I walk over and I'm like, hi, John, it's Sarah, Dr. Sarah Larsen. And my husband to be, that I didn't know was to be, looks over at me and says, I'm not John, and I don't believe in doctors. And thus starts an amazing miracle that shows up. It was his first time being at this concert. And
to see Cowboy Mouth.
Cowboy Mouth. And here, Cowboy Mouth had a profound experience for you as well.
Well, just one of my best friends growing up was Leo Ristamunio, and he was from New Orleans, so he always talked about this band, Cowboy Mouth, how awesome Cowboy Mouth, how awesome Fred was, who's a drummer who doesn't sit in the back of the stage, he sits front and center like a lead singer would, and he's the lead singer of the band. And so it's a really unique band experience. And then, like you said, Fred, he's like, he's a shaman up there on stage, getting everyone to scream out and be cathartic. And so it was my first time. I was like, Cowboy Mouth, I got to go see Cowboy Mouth. Leo talked about them forever and ever and ever and ever. So I went to go see Cowboy Mouth.
And Greg met Leo, his best friend, in Europe.
Oh.
And Greg's best friend grew up 3 blocks from my house. And his wife, and we looked back, and there were at least like 11 to 13 times that Greg and I could have met. My parents were actually at his the wedding that Greg was at, best man in. And so it's quite extraordinary that I got violently ill, had to take a review course in Nashville, finally at this stage, having met him, and lo and behold, that inner voice, that inner knowing, really making it possible for me to meet the one that I'm meant to marry. One of my beliefs, one of my knowings is all relationships, soulmate relationships, are decided long before we get here. Those experiences are chosen before we're here. And this experience, the 400 trillion, 1 in 400 trillion that you would exist. And to match that up, he grew up in Minnesota. I grew up in New Orleans. He met his best friend in London, who insisted he had to, if ever given the opportunity, see this band. Here we go. We meet at this concert, and amazing things ensue. One of the things that I want miracle makers to get from this is what is divinely yours cannot be taken away. You can't mess up your life. You can, had I been more tuned in and ready and available, feeling my own worthiness, Greg and I might have met sooner. In one of those 11 times that we could have met. But when the time was right, when I had gotten my own personal vibration expanded out, feeling worthy, I met what was mine by divine right. And if I hadn't met him, I'm sure we would have met in various ways moving forward.
Yeah, and what I want to say is, because it'll touch back on what we talked about earlier, which is forgiveness. You know, I'd been married earlier and divorced, and I was very, crushed by the divorce. And several years later, it was actually just a few weeks before I met Sarah. I went back to Minnesota, and I was, planned a day to hang out with my ex-wife and her new husband, and went through this whole journey of sharing all these songs I'd written in Nashville, all these heartbreak songs, divorce songs, stuff like that. And I'd gotten to this place of really releasing that, letting go, in forgiveness, in acceptance of that. And once I was able to clear that from my experience, that a few weeks later, I meet Sarah. And one more point of note, not only did I say I don't, trust doctors or like doctors, I also said I'm never getting married again.
Which was really, really darling, which made it safe for me to become friends with him, because there weren't unrealistic expectations of us going somewhere further and deeper, because he wasn't getting married again and I was going to be the Mother Teresa of medicine. My mom actually thanked Greg and said, "Thank you for keeping her here in this country." The next place that I was meant to be was a place in Mexico, and where doctors won't go. They needed a pediatrician. What I'm really utterly grateful for, again, is when we got married and we went through this feeling and this fuel of having children and drawing a new path for ourselves. Again, I felt terrible. I felt I'd let myself down, or I'd let the people that needed me down in some shape or form. And slowly, my love of service got me out of the depression and created for me miracles everywhere. I began working with schools and creating schools. And the California Council of Parent Participating Nursery Schools. At one point, I had 500 families that I was helping, 14 different schools as the president of the South Bay chapter during those years. it wasn't the idea that I had, but I had an internal nudge to say yes to something. And through that nudge, I found, wow, I don't need to be in a particular place to fulfill my life's purpose, this life seed. And by forgiving myself, by letting go of what I thought my future had to be, I created very much this ability to be here now. Hollywood, California, UBN Studios, helping so many people through the radio, through the classes, through the courses. I let go of who I thought I was supposed to be, and in the present moment embraced the nudge and the yeses, the little yeses and the little opportunities that were coming up for me through empowering myself, through saying yes, feeling uncomfortable as you know what when I first said yes, but slowly showing up and learning the new skills and being able to do it. I let go of the past. I let go of who I thought I was supposed to be. I turned myself, my head, my thoughts, my actions to the light, and I stretched myself out of my comfort zones.
That is the journey of a miracle maker right there, because every human being has trials and tribulations. None of us are free from that. So it's how you respond. And as we've been discussing, the first steps are being in complete acceptance of where you're at, what happened, that you just have to be in acceptance of that because it's in the past and there's nothing you can do. You cannot change that at all.
Yes.
So being in acceptance, learning forgiveness, offering forgiveness, cultivating forgiveness, all of that, so you can be this clear chalkboard that can begin to create a new going forward.
And that new going forward, it is a little bit, you feel inside yourself, your heartbeat start to race. Mm-hmm. You feel inside yourself, maybe even the saying hi to someone or asking for that thing that you know will make a difference in your life. Some people call that stress. And when you recognize, or fear, but when you recognize stress response, fear response is the same physiological response that your body makes when you're in love. Mm-hmm. You feel the same thing. Your heart rapidly beats, your palms sweat. And if you can breathe through that and say, wow, my body is giving me energy to make myself go in the direction of something that I love, it's incredible what winds up happening. It's the same response, whether it's fear or anxiety or falling in love.
Beautiful. And again, as we go on this journey of what it is to be a miracle maker, how to be a miracle maker, so we begin there, acceptance and forgiveness. And as we also touched upon earlier, it's about, what's your bliss? What gives you joy? What lights you up? What raises the hairs on your arms? And you start talking about it.
Yes.
Finding those things that you deeply resonate with, that you're passionate about. And as you, cultivate those and awareness of that, a step that has been so critical in my life for many years now is asking, and I'll just say, because this is what I'm kind of used to saying, although you can use any term you want for this, but it's asking God, how am I being called to serve? Or what if it's whatever your term for God is, or you can say universe or life, it's how are you being called to serve? Because we have to step away from, what am I going to do? How am I going to contribute? How am I, it coming from it more of an egoic
Yes.
place to surrendering that and asking, how is life? How is this the creator? How is this bigger force that created the universe and the billions of galaxies and the billions and trillions of star systems? That's an amazing entity, whatever you want to call that. And that entity has a purpose for you. And we listen through our hearts what this entity is guiding us to do, to how we can serve in this grand scheme of things.
And I think if you're an apple seed, what's asking you to serve is not going to ask you to be an orange seed.
That's right.
When you're asking, how am I being called to serve? It's going to also light you up. It's not something that you're begrudgingly going to do. It's if you love math and not singing, what's calling you to serve is not going to say go sing.
Yeah.
It's going to be go do some math equations, go accounting, go in that direction versus go up on stage and sing in this manner, because there is an intelligence. There is so much softness and fun in being able to serve where you're called to serve. When you're uncomfortable because it's asking a new skill or creating a new connection, that's common, but it won't. The universe source will never ask for you to do something that's outside of your ultimate fun, joyous bliss zone as well.
Yeah, and that that message may change along the way too. I always say that the universe knows your experience.
Yes.
So as I was developing and I happened to get married and go through divorce, then the universe knows that I went through a divorce. And so it's like when I ask how am I being called to serve, maybe it's connecting with people who've been through divorce and offering them guidance or suggestions on how to heal or how to move forward. So the universe is always going to take into account what your gifts are, what your experience is, what you've learned along the way. And so from there, so you can ask again in another year, you can ask how am I being called to serve? It might be different because you're different and you have new skills and new experiences to share and to give back to others.
And the most important in there with those skills and gifts is this is a great time. If you're ever feeling stuck, it's a great time. Or if you're feeling not connected to your life, that's a great time to really get your body, your soul, your spirit is sending you a signal. If you're hungry, you get hunger pains. If you're thirsty, if you're lonely, and if you're stuck. That's really a call out to do something creative. And that creativity can come from the answer. How to be creative comes from how am I being called to serve? And right now, we are so grateful to be able to take people, our friends, old souls, and miracle makers to Egypt. It's one of the ways that we're really being called to serve on a planetary level these days. There is so much history and humanity and peace that's available for you when you develop yourself in the direction of traveling, sacred travel. And we are being called to lead people to Egypt, to the Great Pyramids, to what we have known through all time that exists, and these great experiences in the King's Chamber and the pyramids, these great experiences in the temples, these grand adventures.
Truly, it's Egypt, has always held a captivating, image and because so many kids around the world in all different cultures know about the Great Pyramid. It's just something that is a story that is circulated around the planet. And there's reasons for that because it's a mystery still. It still is a mystery. They still don't know exactly how it was created or exactly how it is built today or what is inside of it,
We
actually.
couldn't build it today the way that it was built with all of our technology, all of our knowing, all of our science, all of our understanding. There are more stones in the Grand Pyramid than there are in all of the cathedrals in Europe. And if you think about that for a second, this great experience, a great tour with a medical doctor, with a healer, with all the great work that Greg does with presence, and with our group, private group tours that love helping you wake up to the miracles that are available in your life.
Yeah, and even, on the journey last year, when we took a group of people last spring, there is the miraculous that arises because you slow down to the pace of the Nile. We spent 8 days on this dahabeah, which is like a yacht, Nile Egyptian style, but still so beautiful, so opulent. And as you slow down to the pace of the Nile, your senses open up, and so many people received signals, signs, the alpha, reflections of the mysterious, the miraculous. It was a super powerful journey, and this year is even going to be more so.
Yes, it's last year we took a beautiful woman named Bonnie, and she wrote, "I am so grateful to have gone on this amazing, magical, and transformative trip to Egypt. It far surpassed anything I've ever dreamed of. Travel is my passion, and I've been to the far reaches of the globe. But this trip to Egypt was the best trip of my life, better than all my other trips combined, and I do not say that lightly. The trip leaders, Dr. Sarah and Greg Larsen, and our incredible Egyptian guide, Emil Shaker, took wonderful care of us. Every aspect of the tour was so well planned and thought out, from private tours of the temples and the pyramids to the fun activities in between. I felt like royalty staying at the Mina House with a view of the pyramids from my hotel room and cruising the Nile on a yacht with very attentive staff and private chef made me feel so pampered. The Egyptian people were warm and friendly. The food was delicious, and I felt safe everywhere we went. The people in our group soon felt like a family and have all kept in touch since the trip. There wasn't one of us who didn't want this tour to not end. This wasn't just a tour with historical information. It was a spiritual experience which informed all of us, feeling more loved. I came home feeling lighter and more healed. All I can say is this trip to Egypt changed me, and I am forever grateful." Bonnie Tauber.
Yeah, truly. Yeah, she had an amazing experience. Everyone had an amazing experience. You know what I find so fascinating about Egypt is all of these ancient structures. For one, the Great Pyramid, the Sphinx. When they were created, they weren't a bunch of construction workers, showing up and putting up some glass and steel. These were community projects with a very high sacred intention to assist another human being to ascend into the afterlife. Every stone was placed with that intention. Every stone was carved and cut, knowing that that was the meaning behind it. These buildings resonate with a very high frequency.
They are music.
Yeah.
They are chambers that create incredible music. And Yanni was just there. We were just watching and learning about some of his tours and his videos highlighting that. We want you, miracle makers, to have a miraculous life. And if you're looking to emerge as all that you can be, I know the little girl inside me would have been terrified at one point to say yes to something like this, being invited on the tour and then leading the tour and being in these different countries and different spaces. If you can do this, and if it's calling to you, truly, truly, the miraculous in your life becomes so fully available. And we want every one of you, everyone listening, we understand oneness. We understand source. And we want and know this is a place that you connect so deeply to source that you forget everything and every energy that came before it that blocked you.
Yeah, it is a journey that will release what no longer serves you, and will open you up to receiving, the new vision, the new guidance, the renewed, purpose, intention, the renewed energy to move forward in a miracle manifesting way.
And so, miracle makers, what is the connection between you and all time? What is that connection? What is connection between all living forms? We can go back to 98% of the human race can trace itself back to Cleopatra. And much of the dahabeah, much of the yacht that we travel the Nile on is made to the specifications that she would have traveled with. The same dimensions, and we stop and we are received in every temple. We are at the foot of the Sphinx. We are inside the chambers where others can't go. If you're listening to this, you've already created a miracle in your life by knowing that's possible for you on this tour or any spiritual tour to Egypt.
The whole thing with travel is you get outside of your paradigm, you get outside of your boxes, and you go into these places where your senses are heightened and you're able to receive, the new. You're able to receive those things which you are not normally accustomed to. So it's a great way to open yourself up to your miraculous self,
Yes.
to the miraculous nature of the planet Earth, to the miraculous nature of our universe.
And Rumi says, travel brings power and love back into your life. And we all love poetry.
Yeah.
And much of Egypt is art. And to begin, miracle makers, please begin creating and relating to yourself as art, as a beautiful 1 in 400 trillion. Accept the past. Truly, the floor is the floor, the wall is the wall, the ceiling is the ceiling. The past is the past. It holds no power over you other than what you give it. And find ways that you're being asked and called to serve, and find for yourself the courage to give to yourself that which is calling you.
And what, obviously that's a way to bring in the miraculous or to empower you as a miracle maker. But I really want to, talk about, when I think about being a miracle maker, what can you do to embody that? And what just came to mind as you were speaking was, if you can just break it down to those 4 basic things, it's the body, the mind, or, the mental component, the emotional component, and the spiritual component. So how can you begin to shape yourself or guide yourself so you can touch on those 4 things and begin making space for the miraculous? And these invitations, the journey to Egypt is almost like Joseph Campbell on the hero's journey. There's the call to adventure.
Yes.
And so here's the call to adventure. One of those could be joining us in Egypt. But ultimately, we want to make ourselves available for those calls. So that was just coming to me how can we begin, looking at our lives in a way where we can begin setting us up to be a miracle maker in a more powerful and embodied way.
To embody your soul's purpose, to be the hero you created a body for. Another way to say that is there is no way your body would continue to go on without your participation. There is that which created you, and then there is your participation in it. And you are being guided and led. On this show, Miracle Makers, again and again, we will bring you the greatest guest, the most amazing opportunities, and the ways in which to see yourself, that you will connect to that part of yourself that knows without a shadow of a doubt miracles are possible. you'll begin to see the miracles in your own life. And on our last journey to Egypt, miracle after miracle, sign after sign, the things that we saw on the walls in the temples emerged for us. The ways in which we got to experience Egypt was miraculous and like royalty. This show, Miracle Makers for You, we do it because I get, you are an aspect of me. By you accepting who you truly are, then we all are able to do and be and have and create more. You are the missing link.
Well, and what that comes up for me is, we have 2 children. We have Jasmine, who's 11, and Tyler, who's 9. And I want them to grow up in the most amazing world possible.
Yes.
And so, we just don't live in our home and only me and Sarah interact with our kids. Our kids go out into the world, in all the different ways that they do and all the different experiences. And so a big part of the why for me is, why do I want the world to embody being a miracle maker? Why do I want people to see their potential for doing that? Is because I want a world filled with miracle makers. So when my kids go out into the world, the reflection they see is empowered people who are embodying this aspect of themselves, people creating, people asking, how am I being called to serve? So my kids see that this is the reality we can create from, instead of the reality that's reflected back by the news or all these other things that are going on. One of my bigger whys is I want to affect change in the world so my kids and my grandkids and my great-grandkids grow up in a world that's reflecting back to them love. You are a miracle maker. How are you being called to serve? All of those things.
And to truly let yourself forgive, be the source of forgiveness for the past, for the communities, for creating that. And we have so much information for you on our website, drsarahlarsen.com, drsarahlarsen.com, about this trip. Anything you want to wrap up with?
Just be a miracle maker. Know that it's true for you. Know that that's your potential. It's like we were talking about earlier. It's the seed. So that's it. Just
awesome.
Jump in and listen. We have many more episodes to come that'll explore this topic. So
we also want to invite you this weekend and in future weekends to meet us here in Los Angeles. We've got so many events. One coming up is the 3 Lights. It's happening here in Los Angeles. Look it up on drsarahlarsen.com. It'll be on UBN's page as well. Thank you so much for joining us, Miracle Makers.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!